Yo, welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Jakey. This time I'm coming at you from a different remote location. Way different than anywhere else since I started doing this podcast on video. Right now, I am just outside of Arches National Park in Moab, Utah. Moab is kind of the gateway to three of the big five national parks in Utah. In case you didn't know that, there's Arches National Park, which is the most popular one, I think, in Utah. I guess Zion and Bryce, too. So that's two more. They're down in southern Utah. And I guess this is southern Utah. They call this southeastern Utah, but like Bryce and Zion are way far south, down by the Arizona border. There's Arches here near Moab, and Canyonland's also very close to Moab. And then there's Capitol Reef National Park. They call those the Big Five of Utah. I don't know if any other parks, any other states have five national parks. Maybe California, but five is a lot, and people kind of sleep on Utah. Probably just because it's full of Mormons. You know, if you try to log into porn in Utah on a computer, it pops up a warning screen, like the whole state. It's pretty bizarre. Not that somebody told me that. I haven't logged into porn in forever. Of course not. But I am here because I am on vacation. I'm on vacation every single day because I like my occupation. Why am I singing the Dirty Heads? Because I'm on vacation. And I realized that the other day. I've been here since Friday, and though I left on Thursday morning, left Idaho. But I realized that it's my first time on vacation in a long-ass fucking time because I basically lived my life on vacation for the past 12, 15 years or whatever, and just would, like, work. Basically, since the iPhone was invented, I lived my life on vacation. So that was, 2006, right? So, yeah, like 15 years, because that was when I was finally free to travel. Before an iPhone, I did not have a Palm Treo. I did not have a BlackBerry. I had a Sidekick. Remember those? The T-Mobile Sidekicks? Snoop Dogg advertised them. Paris Hilton. The screen kind of, like, flipped up in a sideways action. It was pretty cool. But that you could kind of send emails. Not really. You could like do a little email, but like when the iPhone came out, that was a game changer. And then that let me just go wherever the fuck I wanted for the most part, and like didn't really need an office. And especially as time went on, and the iPhones got better, really didn't need an office. So I kind of lived my life on vacation because I haven't had a job that required me to be anywhere at any certain time until the Yellow Pine Tavern in Yellow Pine, Idaho. And I've been there every fucking weekend for what seems like forever, but it's only been a few months since July 2nd. And so I had this weekend off. I had planned to take it off to go to punk rock bowling. Didn't end up going to punk rock bowling. So I was like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something fun. And it's fall in Idaho already, fellas. Ladies, all my Jacos and Jakettes out there. I thought of that on the hike today. I was going to open the podcast with that. To all my Jacos and Jakettes, what's up, everybody? Whoop, whoop. It's fall in Idaho, and it's been getting fucking cold. And, last week I left work a day early because there was going to be snow on the mountain pass to get between Yellow Pine and McCall. And then, oddly enough, I ran into a customer from the tavern today. I met this dude at the tavern, I don't know, a few weeks ago. He was this dude who showed up. Nice dude, and he had this Thai wife, and I could tell she was Thai, but I asked anyway. And she's like, oh, I'm from Thailand. Not making fun of it. That's just how she talks. She's definitely, like, from Thailand. And I asked how they met, and they met when he was on vacation. Like, it's a very, very common love story. I oftentimes wonder how much love has to do with that, but he was a good-looking, nice dude. Like, you see a lot of that shit you see in Thailand. You see these like crusty, fucking fat Germans and Englishmen, with these like Thai women walking around holding hands. You're just like, yeah, I guess. I don't know. It made me when me and my boy DJ and Swank were over there to the end of 2016. We were just kind of like looking at all these guys like, Jesus Christ, what fucking crummy situation that a woman's got to get into, deal with these fat fucks, you know? Like, they all had a certain look to them, too, for the most part. Like, I don't, it just kind of, like, freaked me out. I didn't like it. None of us liked it. And we asked some Thai people if they had a word for the women. And they were like, or for the men. We're like, what's the word for the men that come over here and try to wife up a Thai woman? And they didn't have any. They didn't have a derogatory term, which I really thought they would. But at least the few people we talked to about it, which were the people who worked in the very expensive house that we were renting. We weren't paying for it. DJ had a real sweet sugar mama for a while. She was paying for it for like 2 fucking palaces next door to each other. She invited all her gay friends. And DJ invited me and Swank just so he wouldn't be the only straight guy there, and we basically got a free ride for like 2 weeks in this wildly impressive situation. And but we asked the people who were working there, like, what do you call the men who come here? And like farang is the Thai word for a tourist, just like gringo is the Mexican word. It's not derogatory necessarily. It's just like, he's a farang, meaning a white person from a Westerner. They didn't have a word for fucking like those kind of men. And they didn't even find it that creepy, but they had a word for the women. I forget what it was, but they were like, they called them like whores. Like they thought they were better than them somehow because they got to work in a house serving farangs, like just fucking cleaning up after us or whatever, which I didn't really understand. I feel bad for those women. I don't, but I guess everywhere's got a social hierarchy, right? But I ran into these customers, anyway, former customers from the tavern. This guy wifed up a Thai woman. They seem to be in a pleasant relationship, I would call it. They definitely like both of them. She spent all the time in the tavern on her phone, but that could also be because it was the first time she had service in a while because they were up there camping. So maybe they're totally in love. They seemed happy today. So it's hard to say, but, if they're happy, fucking good for them. I fucking hope so. But they told me they had been looking at the weather because they love being up in Yellow Pine, and they're like, it's going to be high of 44 this weekend. And I was like, no, that can't. Wait, what? No, that can't be. So I did not check the weather app. I was in town, but I just kind of in one ear and out the other. You know what I mean? I was like, no, that can't. I can't. No, fucking better not be. Not that I'm worried about it getting cold. It's going to be cold, right? It's almost winter in Idaho, especially up in the mountains. I'm sure whatever the weather is in Yellow Pine, it's going to be the same weather in McCall. But he said it was only for one day this weekend, so I'll see. But I'm just saying no, because if it's like that, then it's going to get colder in the mountain pass, and I can't take my motorcycle, and if that's the case, I can't go to work, so we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll have another weekend off. That would be cool. And then I go to New York City next week. Weird. Probably going to record a lot of new episodes of the podcast with my friends. If there's anyone I'm friends with who you would like to hear me interview on this podcast, let me know. At Jake Rocks Off. Leave it in the YouTube comments. Or text me, 917-443-7615. Look at this beverage, right? Topo Chico. Just got back from a hike. Stopped at JJ Mercantile. Mile 17 of Route 128 along the Colorado River, coming out of Moab. In case you're wondering, JJ Mercantile. They have good espresso, too. But I came down here because I wanted warmth. That's what I was getting at, is that it's fall turning into winter up there in Idaho. And I was like, all right, if I have the weekend off, I want to go somewhere where it's fucking warm, where I can sleep in my hammock. When you sleep in a hammock, so you know, if it's going to be at all cold, you need to have a sleeping pad that's going to be an insulator, because otherwise the cold air is just whipping under your body, and a sleeping bag's not really going to do it. So if you sleep in a hammock, you have a sleeping pad of some sort. I have an inflatable one. You can have those hard fold-up foam ones that you see hikers with sometimes. But when it's really nice out, you can just sleep in your sleeping bag or in your clothes in a hammock, and that's what I've been doing. Last couple nights, I slept with no fucking clothes on in my sleeping bag, but it was all unzipped. It was fucking great. That's what I was looking for, and just some real heat to get into before I go hibernate for the winter up in Yellow Pine. So I was like, where can I go? And I thought about going down to Valley of Fire State Park, but that was like 12 or 13 hours away from from McCall. So I decided to go to Moab, because I came through Moab last year in October when I was bringing my motorcycle for winter storage down to Tyler Coburn's house in Phoenix, and it was so fucking mobbed with people were crazy to get out of the house because of the pandemic, and I guess everyone was on unemployment. And the park was closed for a 3-hour wait to get into the park, and there was a big, huge traffic jam in town. It literally took me a half an hour to get through Moab, and if you know Moab, it's 2 miles long. So I was like, just get me the fuck out of here. I just wasn't ready to receive the energy of Moab last year, I guess. I had a bad day the day before. My fucking former therapist ghosted me with a meetup. I guess I probably never talked about it on this podcast, but like one of my therapists from the treatment center I was in last year, 2 years ago, actually, coming up on 2 years now since I've been out of there. Just like a few weeks from now, it'll be 2-year anniversary. Wild. But he had moved. We became Facebook friends after I got out of treatment, and he had moved to just outside of Salt Lake City, and I was passing through there, and I sent him a Facebook message. I was like, yo, Dr. G, you want to hook up? You want to meet up? Like, I'm going to be coming through there. He's like, I'd love to. Let's have breakfast. Meet me at 9:30. Get off at this exit, and then I'll let you know a place. Like, this is the town I live in. That's where we're going to meet. I'll hit you up tomorrow, tell you where to meet. So the next morning, I get up. I stayed with a friend in Salt Lake City. Shout out to Nikki D. And I woke up to be there at 9:30, got off the exit, and sent him a message like the night before, like, hey, what's your phone number, just in case. Didn't hear back. That morning was like, hey, man, I'm getting on the road. I'll be there at 9:30. Didn't hear back. Never heard back. Dude fucking totally ghosted me. I hadn't told him that it was the 1-year anniversary of me showing up at that treatment center. I figured I'd surprise him with that and be like, Dr. G, you wouldn't believe it. I can't believe I'm seeing you today. 1-year anniversary. But yeah, he totally fucking ghosted me. And then he didn't post anything on Facebook. I sent him another message like, I'm here, dude. Where you at? Never replied to that message. Then didn't post anything else on Facebook for like 3 or 4 weeks. Then I checked again, and then he posted something about his new fucking side-by-side. And I was like, what the fuck is this all about? And then I didn't send him another message, though, because I was like, it's not on me to send him that message. It's on him. That's fucked up, especially for a therapist to do to a former client. But I assume something bad happened to him. But I never know, because then I unfollowed him. I didn't unfriend him, but I unfollowed him. Because I'm like, dude, fuck off, you know? Like, that's just rude. But man, maybe I should check in with him again. Anyway, I tried to come here last year. I wasn't really prepared for it. So I came this year, though, I guess. I wasn't prepared to receive the energy. There's a couple of places. Moab is known to have a sort of special energy to it, right? A special desert energy. Joshua Tree has it as well, and Sedona, Arizona. Those are kind of the three sort of magical. Zion and Bryce, too. Though, I gotta say, Zion and Bryce are very beautiful just in, like, very small pockets. Like, you're kind of coming into Zion, it's nice. You're in Zion National Park, boom. It's almost like a switch flips from outside of Zion to inside of Zion. Bryce is kind of like that, too. And it's all kind of beautiful around there, but it's like, Moab's different. Like, the whole area is fucking gorgeous. And, so I was like, I'm going to go there, and I'm going to experience warm weather. So I left on Thursday morning, and here's where we talk about adversity. There's a road closure between McCall and Boise that they close every day from 10 to 2 because there was a big rock slide and avalanche, and they're, like, blowing up a bunch more rocks and, like, taking them out to make sure there's not another avalanche while there's traffic. And from where I live in McComb all the way to Boise, it's 106 miles on a 2-lane road, and about half of it is through these narrow, tight, winding canyons, steep, walled canyons. So, like, if there's a rock slide, it's going to close the road for a long-ass time. And they've been working on this since I moved there last year. So I knew I had to leave the house by 9 o'clock because I had to get down through Smith's Ferry where the closure was by 10 or else the road would be closed. So I left the house at, like, 9:09 because I was stressed. I have fucking shit going on. Got some personal shit I've been dealing with a friend. It's a fucked up situation I'm not going to get into here. But I was a little stressed. Was dealing with that the day before. Had to leave. Like, trying to get my shit together to leave. And I wasn't going to leave till Friday. But then I was like, fuck it. I'm going to leave Thursday morning. So I left Thursday morning. But then left the house and I was racing to get to the road closure. And then I realized I forgot this little Garmin device I bought, the satellite device, in case shit goes really wrong when you're out there in the middle of nowhere. And so I had to turn around to get that. And then by turning around to get that, I was like, well, I'm definitely going to miss this road closure. But I did. I turned back around. Then I had to stop and get gas, too. So I fucking missed it by a mile. But I navigated around it on these dirt roads. So I did manage to get around it because going around the other way on the paved roads, it was going to add like an hour and a half to my trip. And I was like, no, thank you. So it's like, fuck it. I found my way around, just blew past these signs that said, on the dirt roads, it said closed to local traffic. I was like, yeah, but I'm not, or closed to through traffic. I was like, yeah, well, I'm local traffic because I live in McCall. That's what I was thinking. But I got down through there. But when I went back to my house to fucking get the Garmin device, my fucking battery died on my bike. And I kind of knew it was dying, but I kind of thought it wasn't. I kind of charged it, but like, back over the summer one day, I left the key in it when I showed up at the tavern with the headlight on, and it just ran the battery down, and I had recharged the battery with this charger thing, but I guess sometimes that breaks the battery, but I thought it was going bad in Salmon a few weeks ago, so I stopped at a Napa, and they had a battery, but the battery they were going to sell me wasn't charged, so I bought this little contraption that's like a battery brick for a phone that has little jumper cables on it. It's supposed to be good for like 30 charges. So I ended up having to take my seat off and clamping the fucking things to the battery and jump starting the bike. And then I was like, I can do that, but now I've got to get to Boise to get a new battery. So I can't let the bike stall or I'm going to have to deal with that again. And at a certain point, like, I almost started crying. Honestly, I almost started crying because I was just fucking stressed out about this other shit. And then I was like, you know what? Just fucking get there. Like, you're just going to get to Boise. You're going to figure it out. And still, I knew I was going to miss the road closure and I was going to have to fucking figure that workaround on the dirt roads, which I had done before previously, like a month before, because I missed the closure. Totally forgot about the closure and then got down there and the woman was like, you can't come through. And I was like, well, I'll just make a left down here. And she's like, no, I need to see your ID. So I just turned around, like, to prove that I was local to that area. So I just turned around and figured out the dirt roads. So I did that again. And then eventually I finally made it to Boise. And just the day before, I had been in Boise the day before dealing with a fucking tire for my car, which is another bullshit flat tire. I'm like, how the fuck does this happen? Jesus Christ, going back and forth. Goddamn fucking trips to Boise. But my buddy Chris Parks helped me with the tire. Shout out to Chris Parks. And what's it called? Discount tire? Commercial tire? Commercial tire, I think, is the name of the company he works for. What names they have for these tire companies, right? Discount tire. Commercial tire. You call it fucking money tire. But the day before, we had eaten at a Thai restaurant, and right next to it was a place called Cycle Gear, and I knew they would have a battery, so I was like, fuck it. I know exactly where I'm going to get a new battery for my bike, and I got down to Cycle Gear, and at the fucking red light where I make the turn, I can see Cycle Gear, and I just got to turn down this road and go like 50 yards. I'm at this red light, and I'm like 15 cars back in this line at the red light, and my fucking training paid off. When I first got my motorcycle, I remember my first motorcycle, 2003, I went to this motorcycle safety foundation school. And one of the things they taught you was always leave room between you and the car in front of you at a red light, and always keep the bike in gear. Don't put it in neutral. The idea would be, it's easy to put it in neutral because then you can let your hand off the clutch and you can kind of like, shake your wrists out a little and just kind of like stop paying attention for a minute. But I remember they told me always leave it in gear at a stoplight and leave room between you and the car in front of you, because if you leave it in gear, in first gear, if you need to move quickly, you can do that. And if someone's coming up fast from behind and you think they're going to rear end you, you can move forward. And I was like, really? That's gonna happen? That's gonna work? And it fucking happened, man. I'm fucking in this line at the red light, and I hear this fucking tire screeching behind me, and just on instinct, I fucking let the clutch out, rev the throttle, sprung forward like 6 feet, and stopped before the car in front of me. And I fucking look in the rearview mirror, and the guy's like a foot behind me. So if I hadn't moved and popped forward, that dude would have just fucking plowed into me. And I turned around, and I gave him a fucking death glare, and he looked like he was about to shit his fucking pants. And then, like, in the moment, I was like, I wanted to get out and fucking punch right through his window. But I just stared him down for a minute, and then I just looked at him, and I shrugged my shoulders as if to say, well, what can you do, right? You're lucky you didn't kill me. And I don't know if he had a sense of relief look on his face. I didn't really see anything after I shrugged my shoulders, but I was hoping to communicate that, because it was like, dude, I'm sure dude almost had a fucking heart attack too, and the easy thing to do would have just been to stay mad at him, right? To be like, I'm going to fucking kill you. But like, what's that going to accomplish, right? It was like that time I got hit from behind in France, and I like got up off the bike when the guy crashed into me from behind. I got up off the bike and like was threatening to kill him. I'm like, what fucking good is that going to do? The guy's already probably traumatized that he fucking hit a motorcycle from behind. Probably shit his pants 3 times. Mad, pantalones. So, yeah, what was it going to do for this guy? But I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, like, can anything more go wrong? The answer is yes. So I get to Cycle Gear. They're like, oh, we have a battery, but it's not charged, so it's going to take us some time to charge it. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get to fucking Moab, man. Can't you sell me the fucking battery? And he's like, it's going to take a while to charge. I want to give you a fully charged battery. It's kind of charged. And I was like, well, just give me a fucking fully charged battery. So he's like, it's going to take an hour. So I was like, all right, cool. I go to this Thai food restaurant again next door. Then I come back. I had good Thai food. Shout out Basil Thai on whatever bullshit street in Meridian, Idaho. Meridian, Idaho, I got to say, no thank you. No, thank you. Meridian is the city next to Boise, town, whatever. It's like a Boise suburb, but it's just like one long fucking strip mall. I don't get it. It's kind of like hell. It's not as bad as Salt Lake City from Ogden to Provo, Greater Salt Lake City, but it's pretty fucking bad. Meridian can suck my balls. They can suck my chocolate salty balls. Uh, I don't ever want to have to go back there if I can avoid it. But they do have good Thai food, so if I'm ever back in Meridian, I'm going to go back to Thai Basil. Like, as good as Thai food in a strip mall gets, which, let's face it, it wasn't fucking great, but it was way better than I thought it would be and good enough to go back to another day. So, finally get the battery, and then I go to, like, swap the battery out, put the new one in, and then these other two wires that are joined into this one connector, I don't know what they're called, but like they pull out, and then I can't get them back in. I can only get one of them in, so I get that in, and it turns out that's the wire for my GPS unit, which I don't go for GPS, I don't use it, but I put earbuds under my helmet, and the GPS unit is also the receiver for my Sirius satellite radio, so I needed that to work, and I'm like, fuck. So I couldn't even jam the wire back in the thing that connected it to the battery, but I touched it to the battery terminal, and that turned the thing on, and that's how I figured out that's what it was. And so I was like, fuck, I can't ride all the way to Moab with no music. So I was like, fuck, I got to go to Napa because I didn't have this part. And the dude actually lent me some tools to try to figure it out at Cycle Gear, which, if you know anything about garages and things like Napa, they don't loan you fucking tools. They just don't do it. But I got this guy to loan me a fucking tool, Henry, at Cycle Gear, to try to get the thing to work, and I couldn't get it to work. And then he's like, to get another one of these contraptions, you got to go to Napa. So I went to Napa, and actually tried to send me to O'Reilly's Auto Parts. I just never felt good about that place. Maybe because one of the first guys that molested me was Irish. Two of them, actually. But I don't really have any problem with the Irish, so that's probably not it. But just O'Reilly's Auto Parts doesn't sound as good as Napa. I don't know. It's just always struck me as funny. Funny name. So I went to Napa. Then I got this contraption, but I could only stick one of the wires in, and I didn't even know what the other wire was for at that time. I figured it out later. But I was like, all right, I got to fucking figure this out. So I did, and then I needed a fucking pair of pliers to, like, crimp down the connector on the wire so it wouldn't get loose. And I figured that all out, and I was pretty psyched because, like, I didn't know anything about mechanics growing up. I didn't really own a car. I owned a van for a hot minute in 1997, a red, like, kind of kidnapper type of van, but it did have some windows on the side, so not really kidnapper. It was more like a 70s love van because it had shag carpeting inside. When I bought it, it had shag carpeting on the ceiling, the walls, and the floor. It was fucking awesome. And then I bought a recliner and put it in the back. And but that lasted like 3 months. I drove it around New York. I got hit a few times. And then I didn't understand like how important it was to check the oil and change oil. So it just kind of blew up one day and then sold it for scrap. But I had bought it to go on tour selling CDs for my record label, following around the Korn Family Values tour in 1998, because we thought paying $1,000 for this busted-ass van we just walked by one day on the street was going to be cheaper than renting a van, and it turned out it was, so it served its purpose, and then I destroyed it. So never really owned a car. I bought another car in Botswana just to get around that country with, as opposed to having to rent a car, and that worked fine. Changed the oil plenty of times in that thing, but like, until I bought my first motorcycle, that's how I kind of started to learn. And back then, like, YouTube wasn't really a thing to learn things, so I had to buy these Climber manuals. A company called Climber makes a manual for every kind of motorcycle, and like, just had to learn shit on my own. So I was very proud of myself for being able to figure all that out and get the bike back on the road. Now, the old bike I had, the Kawasaki, I changed the fucking front fork springs, I changed the rear suspension, I changed levers tons of times because I would crash it in the woods all the time. Changed bulbs, changed oil. So I kind of learned, I still don't know how motorcycles work, but I know how to change pieces on them, if that makes sense. Still have no idea how a fucking engine works. And I've watched videos on YouTube, how does a motorcycle engine work? No fucking idea. Even though it shows me, I still have no fucking idea. I don't know. Whoever invented the engine, fucking genius. Was it Eli Whitney and the Cotton Gin? Was that the first engine? Maybe. If so, God bless you, Eli Whitney. Anyway, so I finally got going, got on the road, didn't get out of Boise, Meridian, whatever the fuck. I had to drive. I guess technically I had to drive through Boise, so I went through Boise. But Meridian, holy shit, what a fucking terrible place. Just any place that's all strip malls is terrible. And if you live outside of a major city, you probably live in a place that's all strip malls, and I'm sorry. But that sucks, right? Like, just when you go into those restaurants and strip malls, you're like, you look around and you're like, it's just a strip mall restaurant. It looks like that. It's boxy. It's like everything looks like the fucking Cheesecake Factory. How do you get any vibe in those places? You don't. Like, you really got to find that, like, that rundown dive bar behind the tire shop or the auto body place that's been there since before they started making strip malls. But, like, you can't build a dive bar inside a strip mall. It's never going to work. So it looks like a fucking strip mall. And the contractors build them with the wide bathroom doors and because of wheelchairs or whatever. And it's no good. It's no good. Get out of strip mallville. Strip mall is kind of like one of the worst things about America. It is. But blow up all the fucking strip malls, right? So anyway, I got out of Boise. I don't know what time it was, 2:33, something like that. It was fucking late, later than I wanted to. And I just kept riding. And I rode, and I rode. And I got to tell you, between Boise and Salt Lake, you pass a town called Mountain Home. Has a Walmart, a Chevron, a McDonald's, not much else. It's like 45 minutes. You get out of Boise, you're in the middle of nowhere. Like, city limits and it's nowhere. Boise spreads to the west into Meridian, and I guess a little to the southwest to Nampa, which I've heard is also strip mallville. And then you get further out into Caldwell, and then Caldwell, well, we'll talk about Caldwell later. Caldwell becomes a more rural farming community. But you go east out of Boise, you kind of like leave Boise. There's fucking nothing. You're all of a sudden in the middle of nowhere. Then 45 minutes later, you pass Mountain Home. You blip through there and 2 exits. And then once again, you're in the middle of nowhere. And then you stay in the middle of nowhere. You kind of like, you pass by an exit for Twin Falls. But Twin Falls is like 8 miles south off the exit. You go over the Perrine Bridge where everyone jumps off of to skydive. Then you're in Twin Falls. But Twin Falls is nothing but strip malls and meth cookers. So you don't want to spend much time in Twin Falls. It's famous for the Perrine Bridge, Perrine, Shoshone Falls, beautiful waterfall, and the Snake River Canyon. That's what the bridge goes over. That's what the waterfalls are in, that part of the Snake River, and that's what Evel Knievel tried to jump over in his rocket cycle. Failed miserably, by the way. Knew he was going to fail, but tried it anyway. A lot of speculation that Evel actually pulled the parachute as it was launching because he knew it was going to be a disaster and like didn't want to have to parachute down from the height of the arc of his jump. But you can't. People are mad at Evel Knievel because they think he pulled the chute on purpose as the thing was launching. But like Evel Knievel, guy was totally an asshole. But as far as motorcycle stuntmen go, like that guy knew a lot of his jumps weren't going to work. Like he had his team of mechanics and engineers tell him like, with the amount of time distance you have to the run up to the ramp at like, you know, Wembley Stadium where he tried to jump over a bunch of double-decker buses and Caesar's Palace, they would tell him, you can't make this jump. The arc of the speed you'll be able to get to, the best gearing we could do for your bike, like you're just not going to make the landing ramp. And Evel would say, well, these people bought tickets. What am I going to do? Cancel? And he would just do these fucking crazy motorcycle jumps and then crash. So Evel Knievel, as far as stuntmen go, they'll never be, like, no one will ever be able to compare to him. But that's what Twin Falls is for. But you don't pass through Twin Falls. You pass, in Twin Falls, you kind of see it over there. But then you just fucking go and go and go through nothing, through southeastern Idaho. There's nothing there. It's kind of the Idaho. It's not even the Idaho you read about because it's more like desert. You got to go a little north to find the potato farms. Those are up more like Pocatello and Idaho Falls and Idaho City. So you're just kind of out there, the middle of nowhere. In fact, I stopped to pee at this one point and get some gas, and the sign outside at the gas station shop said, "Welcome to the middle of nowhere." And they had llamas that you could feed, but the store was closed, and they had left hay out for the llamas, so the llamas didn't pay any attention to me. I didn't have anything to feed them. They already had all the hay they needed, which is unfortunate. And I'd say that I would stop there on the way back, but I'm taking a fucking different route back because that route sucked. And then eventually, finally, after a long-ass time, you end up in Utah, and it says, "Welcome to Utah," and there's nothing there either. I did pass something called Rattlesnake Canyon, got off my bike and took a picture because that sounds cool. But then I got into fucking Utah, and I was like, holy shit. The first place I stopped at, I had to eat at a Burger King because McDonald's wasn't open. The indoor wasn't open, and the drive-through line was like 50 cars. So I went across the street to Burger King. A whole nother fiasco. Don't eat at Burger King. And definitely don't eat at Blimpie's. Like, Burger King is good for a change if all you're eating is fast food every now and then. I had the Impossible Whopper. It's pretty good. But, like, Burger Kings are always fucking disgusting, right? Like, why are they always disgusting? Like, McDonald's, 80% of the time the McDonald's is going to be clean, especially if you're not in a city, right? Suburban McDonald's, usually pretty well maintained. Obviously, each is owned and operated by an independent franchisor. They're not owned by the corporations. That's the whole way McDonald's makes so much money. But people who own McDonald's take more pride in them. People who own Burger Kings, I don't know what it is, but, like, people who own Burger King are fucking shitbags. You know the worst, though, Blimpies, right? Like, I stopped at a fucking gas station that had Blimpies in it, and I texted a friend, and I was like, nothing good ever happens at gas stations with Blimpies. And they wrote back, and we're like, what happened? I was like, nothing happened. I'm just saying nothing good happens in those places. Blimpies is like the Burger King to Subway's McDonald's, right? But Subway fucking sucks, too, right? What is it? Subway, you can't fucking, they can't even call that shit bread or whatever in one of those countries, one of the European countries, because it's not actually bread. It's made with like pieces of yoga mat. It's just like eat fresh. Nothing at Subway's fresh. Nothing. I guess with the lettuce and tomatoes. If you try to get a veggie sandwich at Subway, they're like, they look at you. They're like, oh, they analyze Subway tuna, right? Too. There's no trace of actual tuna fish in their tuna salad. But, like, you ask for a veggie sandwich, and they're just like, they don't actually have vegetables. They have, like, cucumbers, olives, right? Those fucking really thinly sliced cucumbers. What do they have? They don't have carrots, right? They have tomato, lettuce, olives, cucumber. That's what they put on your sandwich. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Take a hike, bucko. Subway, Starbucks, places I will never eat unless I'm absolutely, like, in a real bind. Fuck Starbucks, too. I'm on a real fuck rant. Anyway, so I'm driving through everywhere, getting to this town in Utah, super methed out. It was getting dark, though. I don't like riding my motorcycle in the dark when I can avoid it. You can only see what the headlights illuminate, right? So I try not to ride my motorcycle in the dark, but I was energized at that point. I was like, I'm going to keep going. I really wanted to get to Ogden, Utah, because I was like, that's on the north end of the Salt Lake Sprawl. And there's that, whatever the fucking highway is it 15, the interstate? Basically from Ogden down into Salt Lake City and then into Provo. It's like 3 cities, I guess you'd call them. But it's really just one big, huge sprawl, and it's one big set of fucking strip malls, and it's just like every few exits. It's like the back of a fucking old Flintstones cartoon. You know those old cartoons when they're on the road and they just keep recycling the background? That's what America feels like right now, but especially that strip, Salt Lake, the Ogden, Salt Lake, Provo. It's just like every few exits there's another Home Depot and another Target and another Walmart, and then all those things that go with it, Buffalo Wild Wings and Shoney's and whatever the fuck else, all these Golden Corral, terrible places. And then there's all these other places that only exist because someone came up, like Chipotle. I guess Chipotle kind of seems a little cooler, but like there's all these things like Cadoba Mexican Grill and like these like shops that they're basically like some investment banker was just like, we're gonna open a submarine sandwich shop like fucking Blimpies or whatever, and we're gonna open 5,000 of them at the same fucking time and put them in every one of these strip malls, and then they're just, it's like Insta brand. It's just like those things over and over, whatever the fuck they are, right? The Hobby Lobby, all these other things, just the same shit over and over. So I get into Ogden, and I was like, I think I'm going to stay in Ogden. Always want to stay in Ogden, only because the guy who played piano on Ween's Golden Country Greats album was named Bobby Ogden. And for some reason, I do shit like this all the time. I get something in my head like that, and it's like, Bobby Ogden, Ogden, Utah. Someday I'm going to go to Ogden, Utah, and I'm just going to listen to Bobby Ogden play the piano. And I did not stop in Ogden, though, because I had plenty of energy, and I was like, I'm going to go as far as I can. And once I got into Ogden and it was dark, it felt like a video game on the interstate because I was just following taillights. You couldn't really see anything else because it's all dark out, right? And I'm trying not to look at all this shit on the side of the road. Goddamn fucking Planet Fitness and Home Depot and Lowe's and fucking Target and bullshit fucking Joanne Fabric, all this stuff. Why is it just one big corporate fucking wasteland? Remember when I was younger, and I'm an old man now, right? I'm 48. 48 fucking years old. But when I was younger, I don't want to talk about like, when I was a kid. But when I was a kid, like, I lived not far from the New Hampshire border. You'd just go a few towns away. You'd be in New Hampshire, but like sometimes we'd drive like an hour away. We'd go to like Peabody, Massachusetts to see my dad's best friend. Like never really got far, but even in that small amount of travel, 40 miles or something, like everything would be different. There'd be all types of different gas stations and pharmacies, and you'd go inside and they'd be selling different things. And now it's just everything so homogenized, and that's what I don't like. It's like, it doesn't matter if fucking there's a Family Dollar and a Dollar General here in Moab. There's the same shit everywhere, and they're going to sell the exact same shit inside. There's no local flavor anymore. You really got to get off the fucking interstates to find that kind of shit. It's getting harder and harder. Globalization breeds homogenization, right? So that's what I'm complaining about. But I'm getting into Salt Lake, and I'm just following the taillights of these cars, and there's a big traffic jam, too. I was stuck in for a while, fucking construction and whatever, and it's like, Jesus Christ, it's fucking 8:30, 9 o'clock at night on whatever it was. I guess it was Thursday. But it's like, why is there fucking traffic? There's too many people. I guess it's because Mormons breed like motherfuckers, right? Jesus. I guess that's it. That's why there's so much sprawl there. Goddamn fucking Mormons. You know, if you spend any time in Salt Lake City, you'll see tons of fucking Mormons, and the two things Mormons really can't do is caffeine and tattoos and alcohol. There's so many fucking bars and coffee shops and tattoo shops in the greater Salt Lake City area, because it's like everyone who's not Mormon swings so fucking far the other way. But these Mormons just keep fucking breeding, and that's why it's just one big fucking strip mall of a goddamn fucking town. Jesus. Downtown Salt Lake, though, kind of cool. It definitely has a little flair and flavor to it from back in the day. It's not all strip malls, but anything like within a few miles outside of like, if you know the way Salt Lake's laid out, everything's north, south, east, west, and like southwest, and it's all based on from the temple, from the Mormon temple. But downtown in that Mormon temple area, there's a fair amount of cool stuff that's not just strip mall-y. So I don't want to put Salt Lake itself down, but like everywhere a few miles outside of Salt Lake, and until you get up to like Park City and cool places like that, just that fucking interstate corridor is just like hell. So I finally got through that, and then I was in Provo, and I fucking needed gas, and I got off an exit, and I was at the same fucking exit that I'd gotten off when Dr. G ghosted me, and I was like, holy Christ, what's the fucking chances there? And then I got gas, I got back on the road, I was like, Jesus, man, I can't, like, things like that, they just blow my mind. So I wasn't trying to get off at that exit. I was just like, I need gas, and saw a sign for a gas station. My little flasher indicator came on saying I was low on gas. So I got off, and I was like, Jesus. So then I made it. I was there basically in Provo, and I just knew I was like pretty much at the end of that interstate run, and I was like, I'm not staying in one of these fucking chain motels that they had here. They're the Holiday Inn Express and Ramada and Super 8 and all that shit, and there was like nothing cool looking around. I was like, I don't want to wake up in the middle of this and have to get breakfast at fucking McDonald's. So I was like, fuck it. There's a town 70 miles away called Price, Utah. It's already dark. It's already fucking 10 o'clock at night by the time I got through that whole mess. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go for it. And did not realize there was going to be a huge mountain pass that went up over like 7,500 feet, and it was already starting to get cold. And it was windy, and it felt a little bit dangerous just because I don't like riding at night. Like, it wasn't dangerous at all. It was like long sweeping curves and stuff. But I'm just afraid. I don't know. They have deer in that part of Utah right now. I don't know. I'm just always afraid a deer is going to jump in front of my fucking bike, and you're just going to have to hit it like Evel Knievel and be like, you already paid for your ticket. Got to watch me crash into this deer. That's the only reason I want a helmet cam, is if I ever crash into a deer. Like a helmet cam that just steadily records. That'd be hilarious, I think, if I survived. I guess for my other crashes, but I can't be bothered. I have this fucking goddamn fucking YouTube camera. What's it called? GoPro. I can't even manage to keep it charged. I almost took it today on my hike, and then I realized that it wasn't charged. I was like, because I leave it turned on. I don't know what the fuck. I don't even know how to get the footage off that fucking camera. Can I send the memory disk thing I have? I have tons of GoPro footage. Anyone can I mail it to you? You fucking figure out how to put it on YouTube for me? Because I can't figure it out. I'm like, who cares? Everyone's like, oh, send me pictures of your ride. Fuck you. Go on your own ride. You know? Like, I can't. This is like my third GoPro. And I just fill up these memory cards with footage. And now I can't even be bothered. I barely ever attach it to my helmet now. It's like, nobody's going to watch that, right? But I did make a nice time lapse of my ride from McCall to Utah, from McCall to Yellow Pine. Anyway, wake up in Price, finally get to fucking Moab. This is a long-ass story. I wonder if anyone's still listening. I would have given up, but if you're watching on YouTube, which you can watch, you type Tuesdays with Jakey into YouTube, it looks really pretty. A, because I'm pretty, and B, because these mountains behind me, right? Look at these fucking rocks, man. And look over there. You can't really see through the trees. Yeah, but maybe I'll put some pictures on Instagram. I haven't even bothered. Like, I'm so over social media for the most part. I'll come back, I'm sure, eventually. But, like, can't be bothered to post my pictures from here. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Probably should. Got a lot of good pictures. Anyway, I finally made it here, right? And then I get here, and I'm like, I should have woken up a lot earlier. But by the time I was done on that Thursday and got to Price, Utah, ended up staying at the Greenville Inn. Highly recommended. They have a 24-hour pool and hot tub, and very nice check-in clerk, late-night check-in clerk with painted fingernails. We compared his fingers to my toes. I don't think a lot of people probably compliment him in a sort of rural Utah town on his fingernails when they're checking in. In fact, I would probably think quite the opposite if they're not disparaging to him to his face. I'm sure he can sense it. So I wanted to make sure that I complimented him. And then I told him I just painted my toes pink this morning. And then I came busting back out of my room into the pool and the hot tub at the Greenville Inn in Price, Utah is attached to the lobby. And you're just like, there's all these, the lobby's all carpeted. Then you walk down some carpeted steps, and then you're on tile, and you're in this beautiful pool and hot tub area. This stays open 24 hours. He told me it never closes. And then it was like, actually, it closes when we do maintenance on it and, like, clean the filters and stuff. But, like, that's very, just for an hour here, hour there, or whatever. I thought was cute. But I had ridden 14 hours that day, and my kind of, when I just kept riding and riding, I was like, no matter what time I fucking, like, if I stop riding at 8, I'm not going to get on the road at 4 a.m. Like, I'm still going to get on the road mid to late morning. So I was like, fuck it. I'll just keep riding, and I'll still get on the road mid to late morning. Then I remembered, totally forgot, I space therapy sometimes. Do it twice a week, Mondays and Fridays. Sometimes I space. So then I'm like, getting ready, packing my shit up, and the fucking phone rings, and it's my therapist. I'm like, oh, shit, right, it's Friday therapy. But I was like, I want to get in the hot tub. So I had hot tub therapy for first time I've ever heard of, first time my therapist has ever heard of it. But I told her, I was like, yo, I'm like, I got places to go after therapy, and I need some hot tub time. So I got in the hot tub and had my therapy in a hot tub, which highly recommended if you can do it. Then I finally got to Moab. So by the time that was over, it was 10:30. I finally got out of my room, like 11:30 or something, and was going to eat at McDonald's in Price just because I was in a rush, but then there was this really cool drive-in, so I went in there, got a fish burger with bacon. I asked to add bacon. She said the most popular things on the menu were the bacon cheeseburger and the fish burger, so I was like, let's have the fish burger and add bacon, and she was like this, like, fucking 17-year-old girl. She's just like, okay, weirdo alert, wanting bacon on his fish sandwich. But I was like, fuck it, I do what I want, right? Now I do what I want, like little Uzi Vert says. And I'm a fucking grown man. I'm an adult. I do whatever the fuck I want. I made someone a quesadilla with pickles a few weeks ago. Hey, there's no fucking limit to what you can order. If they have it, they'll put it together for you. That's what I learned working in a kitchen. But by the time I finally got here, I wanted to find a campsite. I didn't even look to see how much hotels cost because I knew it was going to be a fucking fortune. And last time I came through here, I stayed at a really nice place called the Robber's Roost. I'm kidding. It's not really nice, but it's really nice as far as I'm concerned. It's got a great fucking neon sign, and it's in Green River, 45 minutes outside of Moab. So I thought about staying there, but I was like, nah, I'm going to stay closer to town. I'm going to find a campsite. By the time I got here, 2 o'clock or something on Friday, every fucking campsite was full. And I wasn't going to go to like an RV campground. I was going to go to like a national parks or BLM campsites. But all the ones I checked coming up the Colorado River, you kind of come into town. Arches is on the left. You make your first left after the entrance to Arches. You go up along the Colorado River. There's some great trailheads. There's like 5 or 6 different campgrounds with sites that are $20 a night. That's one of the ones I'm staying at right now. I'm usually loath to pay $20 a night, but down in a place like this, you kind of, you know, you want to stay in Moab, you're going to have to pay a little money. I ended up checking what the hotels were on Saturday, and everything was $200. Even the shitbag inns were $200 and up on Saturday. I'm sure it was about the same on Friday. So I went to find some dispersed camping, which you can do in National Park and Bureau of Land Management areas, except in the area right surrounding Moab, they don't allow dispersed camping in this National Forest and Bureau of Land Management, because I think they just know it's so popular here, then it'd become a tent city. So you got to drive like 45 minutes outside. So I came and checked out these campsites, and then I went further up to this thing called Mount LaSalle Mountain. And I'd Google a little online, and that's a national forest. There's plenty of dispersed campsites. What they mean by dispersed campsite is anywhere in a national forest, you just camp wherever the fuck you want. For the most part, you just can't be near a water source. You got to be a certain amount of feet away from the road. But, like, you just pitch a tent wherever the fuck you want for free in national forest land, because it's our public land, right? So that's fucking great. So I was like, I'm just going to find a place up there. And usually you just, like, there's all these dirt roads in national forests. Forest Service roads are called. You just nose around, and then you see a little clearing in the trees, and you put a tent up or hang a hammock. It's fucking great. So I fucking did that. But what I didn't realize, that it was going to be, like, almost an hour out of town to get up into the actual national forest, climb high enough. You got to be inside the bounds of the national forest, or else it's private land. So I get up in there, and fucking turns out, like, the national forest entrance is at like 7,400 feet. So I ride for a while, and then I just nosing around looking for campsites, fucking go down these like gnarly rocky dirt roads, and like places where it's like hard to even turn around once I realize there's nothing good, no good kind of clearings. And finally, eventually, I found this spot, and I found this fucking nice clearing, and it had all these white birch trees, and I went to set up my hammock, and as I'm setting up my hammock, there's this rustling in the bushes, and I turn, and it's a big fucking black animal. It turned out I thought it was a bear, and I was like, ah! Though I don't even know that they have bears in this part of Utah. Probably not. Southeastern Utah, probably not. But I was like, ah! It turned out it was a cow. And then there was another cow, and then I heard a cowbell, and they were mooing, because it's open grazing in this part of the forest for cows. So, like, if you're a rancher, you can just take your cows to the national forest and let them graze, and then you round them up later, I guess. I don't know. They have, like, little RFID tags, so that rancher can probably use his iPhone to figure out where the fuck they are, which to me seems like cheating. But so I'm up there, and I'm like, ah! But I was like, fuck it. And then I was like, all right, I got to get back into town now to get some dinner and some food and some fuel and some fucking firewood and some water, because I didn't have any of that stuff when I went nosing around looking for a campsite. And then I was like, oh my God, how fucking cold is it going to be? Because I'm up here at 8,000 feet. So I went back into town, got firewood, went back up, and it was great. But then I was like, what? I'm too far away from Moab. So spent the night, had a fire. It was chill. I was hanging out up there, listening to some tunes, and just being by myself, chilling. And then I woke up in the morning to a cow mooing. And I look over out of my hammock, and there's a cow literally like 15 feet away. We had a stare down. I was just like, what the fuck? And then I got out of the hammock to pee, and she didn't move. She's just, like, staring at me, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to pee right here then, cow. And then I looked over by my motorcycle, 3 more cows, another cow and 2 calves. And I'm like, thankfully, cows aren't aggressive, right, like buffalo are. So even if a cow has calves with it, it was just like, human, okay. Like, they're not aggressive. They're not easily scared either. If you, like, yell at them to shoo them away, it's not going to help. I did run in a cow again on a trail last week at it was last Tuesday. I went back up in Idaho. I went and ran the Goose Creek Falls Trail, which is like 3 miles each way. And I ran a fair amount of it. I did running and walking, and my knee's definitely getting better. I'm glad I did all these exercises for it, and like really rehabbed it the right way and ran slowly. And so I'm running on the Goose Creek Falls Trail. Come around a corner, another big black fucking furry animal I thought was a bear. I was like, almost had a fucking heart attack. So I didn't have my bear spray with me. I don't know why I didn't. There was even a sign at the beginning of the trail, like, watch out for bears. Yeah, really? Come on. Bear. I'm not that worried. Not on a heavily trafficked trail. Anyway, I probably should be. But, fuck it. If that's how I go, eaten by a bear. I just wish Warner Herzog would make a documentary about me if that happens. See, yeah, that's why I need that helmet cam. But I woke up, and then I was like, fuck. And I posted on Facebook, who's got shit to do in Moab? And my boy Mike Studo was like, I'm in Moab. If you don't know Mike Studo, he owned the club Brownies, which was very big in the 90s and early 2000s in the East Village. Who'd I see at Brownies? I saw Muse play at Brownies. First time I ever saw a tour bus on Avenue A. Saw a lot of great shows at Brownies. Saw the Muffs at Brownies. I had sex in the bathroom at Brownies during a mindless self-indulgence concert, which if that isn't fucking on brand, I don't know what is. I saw the Upper Crust during a blackout there, and all the beer was warm and all their makeup was melting. The Upper Crust are a band that sound like AC/DC but sing songs about the French Revolution, like Let Them Eat Rock. And they wear all these powdered wigs and like aristocrat outfits, which is pretty funny because one of the guys from the Upper Crust went on to become one of Bill Clinton's speechwriters, and the other is an heir to some sort of fortune. So it's pretty funny that they make songs about the French Revolution resistance. But anyway, I ran into Mike Studo, or he texted me when he saw my Facebook post. So I was like, hey, man, let's have lunch Saturday. So coming back to have lunch, and I was like, maybe there'll be a campsite open, and there was, and that's where I am now. And that's the story of how I ended up at this beautiful campsite in Moab, and it's fucking great. It's right along the river, great sick fucking views of all the red cliffs and stuff. Only problem, I don't really want to, there's nothing really to complain about, but it's right along this Highway 128 that goes from Moab, beautiful fucking highway that ends up connecting with Interstate 70 that goes onwards to Denver. So if you're traveling to Moab from Denver, which is a popular place to fly into when you're visiting Moab, take Route 70 and then make a left on 128, however many miles out of Moab it is. But it's a gorgeous road. And on my Butler motorcycle maps, which I talk about a lot on here, it's rated as a G1 road, like the best possible road to motorcycle on. So I'm only at mile marker 9, but I've been going up and down this thing every day this week, and been on some fucking amazing hikes and runs. And Saturday night, I ended up I found this campsite here, so I had lunch with Studo, went back up to the mountain, packed up my other shit, brought it down here, made it into Arches Park for sunset, which I'm going to do again today. I'm actually recording this on Monday, September 27th. You're going to hear it on Tuesday, September 28th, because I'm going to go back into Arches National Park for sunset again, go on another hike, but I went there Saturday, did a 3-mile run, and made it to 3 different arches at sunset, which was fucking great. And then Sunday morning, I woke up and did this thing called the Grandstaff Trail, which is like 4.5 miles to this like crazy rock bridge. It's there and back, so 2.25 miles each way. And I ran most of that, and knees holding up. I'm fucking stoked, and all I wanted to do down here was to like get chances to move my body in warm weather and get sun on my skin, suck in a lot of that natural vitamin D before I sort of go into hibernation for the winter. I'm going to be in New York City for a couple of weeks, and hopefully it'll be nice enough in October that I can run with like a tank top on and get some sun on me. I'll be running in Brooklyn Bridge Park if anyone wants to go on a run with me. I'll be staying with a friend near Brooklyn Bridge Park in Cobble Hill. So if anyone wants to do some running, you can run with me, but only if you agree to go at the exact time that I feel like going. Yeah, running's so weird because it's like you never do it for that long, and like make a date for running, right? It's like, let's go meet up for a run. Like, unless you live very close to that person, I get it. But like, I used to be like, when I was living in New York, friends would be like, hey, let's go for a run. Okay, like, how's fucking Tuesday at 8 a.m.? And I'd say, I don't know, man. I don't know how late I'm going to be up Monday. You know what I mean? Like, but I'd go for runs with friends who live in the East Village all the time because it'd be like, you wake up, hey, dude, you feel like going for a run? I'm leaving in 10 minutes. Okay, yeah, okay. Boom, then you go, and that's great. But if anyone wants to go for a run with me in Brooklyn Bridge Park, let me know. But I came down here specifically to just be in warm weather, get sun on my skin, and move my body. So I did that. That was a fucking great hike, the Grandstaff Trail. And then today I went and looked for some hike called the Professor Creek and Mary Jane Falls. And I got there, and it was definitely Professor Greek, and it said it on the map and all that. And then, but the sign was for Sylvester, the Sylvester Trail, because his name was Professor Sylvester something or other, but it wasn't the Professor Creek Trail. But I was like, must be the same one because it's the only trail at this trailhead. There was another trail off in the other that went in the opposite direction, but didn't have any sign or marker or anything. It just had an equestrian sign. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll go this way. And I went, and it said it was 3.27 miles, but all trails said it was supposed to be 4 miles. And then I made it 2 miles in. It was a huge fucking barbed wire fence across the whole trail. And I gotta say, I was a little relieved, honestly, after dealing with all that, because it was fucking 90 degrees, and I was there late afternoon. Oh, because I fucking broke rear brakes on my motorcycle, and so this morning I went to a motorcycle shop trying to get that fixed. That's a whole other fucking fiasco. I didn't tie down one of my tie-down straps, and it got caught in my rear brake, and then I leaked the brake fluid everywhere, so I'll be riding back to Idaho with just front brakes. But if you know anything about motorcycles, front brake is where almost all your stopping power is. So I'm just going to ride carefully and do as little of it on the interstate as possible, because when you're not on the interstate, the interstates are where you're most likely to have to do heavy braking. That's what I'm telling myself anyway. So I got to limp it back there. But yeah, just all sorts of fucking fiascos. And then running into that fence was like, Jesus Christ. Like, so I ended up there late in the afternoon, later than I wanted. I started the hike at like 1:30 or something, and that's the hottest time of the day here, between like 2 and 6. And so it was up to 90 degrees. And then after 2 miles of hiking and decent elevation gain in just this red clay sand, I had enough. So I kind of climbed to this peak next to where the fence was, and I was like, I could slide under the fence if I belly crawled, but I was like, that barbed wire fence is here for a reason. And I was like, I think a 4-mile hike in 90-degree heat is good enough. And I'd worked up a pretty good sweat, not a whole lot of sweat, because you don't sweat that much when it's that hot out, because your body is sucking all the water in and isn't letting it out. I had a 3-liter Camelback and then a 1.5-liter Nalgene with me on that hike, and I sucked down the Nalgene first, then I left it on the side of the trail so I didn't have to carry it. Very smart hiking move. Then I had my Camelback, which is like a backpack with water in it, and I walked to the end where the fence was, then turned around, and then I was like, I don't need to conserve water at all because I'm turning around. But by the time I got back to my motorcycle, almost all that water was gone, so I drank basically about a gallon of water, 4 liters, and I got back to my bike, didn't have to pee. Stopped for an espresso at JJ Mercantile, mile 17, didn't have to pee. Also picked up this Topo Chico. Great song by Robert Ellis, by the way, Topo Chico and Lime. Check it out on YouTube. Great video. He basically did an ad for Topo Chico, and I don't think they ever picked it up. But great fucking fun, catchy tune all about how good Topo Chico is. Still didn't have to pee. Finally got back to the campsite where I'm recording this podcast and peed just a little. Probably gonna have to pee as soon as I'm done recording this. But I was pretty shocked. Like, that's how fucking hot it is out here. That I didn't have to pee more than I did. And that's where I'm at. Like, that's the wrap up of the week, I guess. I guess I should, one more thing. Okay, so I go on this Cougar, what is it called? Cougar Falls? No. Goose Creek Falls. It's outside of McCall. Technically, it's in New Meadows because it's over the mountain pass that separates McCall and New Meadows. So I guess you'd say it's in New Meadows. Where you could also say that band, Jug Handle Parade, is from New Meadows. Where old Butchie boy, him and I got in a fight over his son's band. Fucking Butch. I ended up getting some more to that story, by the way. But I don't know. Should I share the inner workings of that band? Apparently Butch's boy had started the band and named it, but then the other guy in the band kind of like usurped him. Not on purpose, but he's just like, it was like Brian Jones and the Stones. Brian Jones started the Rolling Stones, then Mick and Keith became the creative forces of the Rolling Stones, and then Brian Jones died in a fucking swimming pool, fell into it when he was drunk and on drugs, and drowned to death because he had lost his band. So you hear that story a million times. Anyway, I guess that's what happened, and that's why Butchie's dad was so fucking sensitive. But I went on this hike, Goose Creek Falls, ran to the fucking fall, came back, and then there's supposed to be a hot spring near there. So, like, very hard to find this hot spring. It shouldn't have been hard, but I've made it hard on myself because I'm not used to fucking foraging through the woods and finding things. Never been to a natural hot spring before. The only hot spring I'd ever really even been to, like, other than the, like, really fancy ones where you, like the Air Spa in downtown Manhattan, like, or the Russian baths, you know, those are like, those mimic hot springs, right? And I've been to Turkish baths in Europe. These bathhouses that are supposedly fed by natural springs, and then they built bathhouses on them. But, like, never one where you just wander into it in the middle of the woods. And I finally eventually found this one. I walked on this trail, couldn't find it. long story, but end up fucking stumbling upon it by wading through a creek because I could see the guys through the trees. Then I get up there and these two guys, and they're just finishing up. And I don't know how old they are because like I'm sometimes I'm really bad at judging ages because I still think I'm fucking. Sometimes I think I'm 12, obviously, because of the way my brain works. But usually like I don't know. I think I'm in my 20s or 30s as far as like. I think I'm young. I think I'm a lot younger than I am because I try to like remain a little hip, pay attention to what's going on. I'm not a stodgy 48-year-old, you know. So like sometimes I'm like. I don't know. These guys were probably in their like late 30s, but to me, they might as well have been in their 50s, right? Because they're just like two construction worker dudes, and they don't look that young. But these guys age very fast. So anyway, I don't know how old they were, but they're not kids, right? They're definitely not in their 20s. Probably like late 30s, early 40s, but they look like they're in their late 50s because of all the hard living they're doing. So I parked my car at the end of this trail and couldn't find it through the trail, but I parked next to this black pickup truck that had plates on it that said like 2C. Every license plate in Idaho, the first letter or two basically tells where you're from, what county you're from. Like my car's license plate starts with V because I live in Valley County. 1A is Boise. Maybe it was 1C, whatever it was on this black pickup truck. When I finally find my way to the hot springs, I was like, oh, guys, they're like, where the fuck are you coming from? What, you just waded through that river? I'm like, yeah. They're like, I was like, yeah, I checked out this trail. I walked it for a while. Couldn't find it. Turned out I was probably within like 40 feet of the hot spring when I was on that trail. But I was kind of like, I've walked way further than I should have from what I read and online and someone told me about. They were like, oh, it's just right off the road. And I'm like, I don't know what right off the road means. You know what I mean? Does it mean a mile? Does it mean 100 yards? So I fucking wade through this creek with my shoes on and everything. And I'm like, finally come up, like climb up to where the hot spring is. And then I was like, where's the trail? And then they pointed. And then when I finally left the hot spring, I realized, like, literally, had I gone another 30 feet, I would have found it. But these guys are just finishing up. And I'm like, one guy's got a towel wrapped over his shoulders. And we just start chatting. And I was like, oh, that must be, they're like, the trail's right there. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it made sense to me because it was on the other side of the creek. So I was like, oh, was that your black Dodge Ram parked down there? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I parked my motorcycle right next to you. Like, I walked up that trail. And they're just looking at me like, if you walked up that trail, how come you didn't find, like, the trail goes right to the fucking hot spring, you dummy. And I'm like, I don't know. And they were like, where are you from? And I was like, Yellow Pine. They're, oh, cool. I need to get to the Harmonica Fest, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. Definitely, like, when you run into someone really white trash, you don't want to tell them you're from McCall because they think only rich people live in McCall because it's a vacation community now. Because it's got the lake and everything. So McCall's known as being bougie. So you don't lead with I'm from McCall. And technically I live between McCall and Donnelly, so sometimes I tell people I'm from Donnelly because Donnelly's kind of trashy. So it's way, it's perception, right? You don't want someone to automatically judge you as look, I already look weird, and I thought about that today. I know I'm going on a lot of tangents, but today I was in town, and when I ran into that, the couple who had been the customers before. I had therapy today, too. Totally forgot about it. Space, I was trying to get my motorcycle fixed, and now it's a whole other fucking fiasco. These fucking guys, as I so eloquently put it earlier, my friend was like, what have they been doing that whole time? Because they told me to come back in 2 hours. I came back in 2 hours, or I come back in another hour. I was like, I'm not coming back because you're not going to do anything. You're not going to fix my brakes. You already told me you can't. You're just going to bleed the brake line so the brake fluid doesn't keep leaking onto my tires. But I was like, joke's on you. It already leaked out already, so fuck it. Like, I'm not going to pay $150 for that. So, as I so eloquently said earlier, when I was asked what were they doing all that time, I said probably smoking meth and jerking each other off until their dicks look like blown out tires. But then I went in to kill time. Those 2 hours, I went into town, got some coffee. Therapist called. So I'm like, oh, fuck, my bike's parked right there. I'm having coffee. I'm going to sit outside the coffee shop. And people just kept walking up to my bike, staring at my bike. A couple people took pictures of it, pointing at the stickers, talking to each other about it. And I'm like, I forget that my bike is very specific looking. And as a matter of fact, the other day when I went to meet Studo for lunch, some guy came up to me in a parking lot of the Moab brewery where we were having lunch. And these two guys, and they were like, hey, man, we were behind you on the road earlier. You were wearing a pink shirt because I was wearing my pink thermal long sleeve. They were like, you were wearing a pink shirt. Love the fucking sticker on your bike. And I was like, which one? And he goes, the one that says, don't be a dick. That's on the back. We fucking loved it. And I was like, oh. And then, like, people are looking at my bike and staring at it. And I forget that I have a recognizable bike, but I also forget sometimes that I'm just a recognizable person. That might sound weird, but, like, when I stop to think about it, I realize, like, oh, right, I kind of look like I'm like a walking cartoon character, right? The way my hair is and dyed all different colors sometimes. Now it's, like, all brown on the top and blonde in the back. But just, like, the colors I'm wearing and, like, purple tank top, yellow fanny pack, fucking aqua blue shoes. I'm like, right, when this bike pulls into town with a fucking pink unicorn strapped to it, like, people are going to remember it. And then I get off of it, and, like, sometimes I think I'm anonymous and, like, invisible. That's what I mean, like, invisible. Like, I'm not fucking invisible at all. But then I'm like, I'm talking to these fucking two guys, definitely rednecks, and I'm like, yeah, I parked my car right next to my bike right next to yours. Oh, where are those plates from? The 2C or 1C or whatever they said on them. They're like, oh, we live in Caldwell. Caldwell is that rural redneck fucking farming community outside of Boise. And I was like, oh, all right. You come all the way up here for the fucking hot spring? And they're like, no, we're actually doing construction, working on a house and council, building a house. We come to this hot spring anytime we're working on a job up here. And I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. Like, and then they asked me about the fucking harmonica. We're just shooting the shit. And the dude finally takes the towels off his shoulder. And, like, on one bicep, on his right bicep, he's got a fucking Confederate flag. And then on the left bicep, it took me, I see the Confederate flag, and I'm like, okay. And then he kind of turns his body to, like, dry off with the towel. And then he's got a fucking huge swastika on the left bicep. And I'm just sitting there looking at him like, what the fuck? And, like, you can't say anything to a guy like that, right? What are you going to say? Like, hey, nice fucking swastika, dude? Like, no. And you're not going to say, why do you have a fucking swastika, dude, right? Like, you just don't say anything. You just got to fucking no-sell it. And just be like, yeah, almost like I didn't see it. But I'm fucking out there in the woods, and, like, if I had given it away that I was anti-swastika, like, what are these guys? Could they beat me to death? Probably. Well, surely they could, right? Two construction workers versus me. Like, maybe I'd like to think I'd put up a valiant fight, but, like, they're not going to end well for me. And I'm in the middle of the fucking woods, right? You're not at a hot spring that you paid $10 to get into. You're just, like, literally in the middle of the fucking wilderness. And there's these two obvious fucking just racist motherfuckers, right? Like, Confederate flag I can almost forgive. Like, depending on how old you are. Like, you thought it was a fucking cool Southern rock thing. Maybe something, right? Maybe. You can almost forgive it. Like, almost. Not really. Almost is what I'm saying. But a swastika, there's no fucking forgiving that. Like, at a certain point, you were like, I'm such a fucking racist piece of shit that I want everyone to fucking know it. I'm a swastika tattooed on my arm. But then the thing that blew my mind the most is, like, I'm just fucking talking to these dudes, and everything's cool, and we're having a nice conversation, and they're like, where are you from? I'm like, Yellow Pine. They're like, yeah, sure, cool harmonica fest, blah, blah. Cool hot spring, whatever, dude. And then it's like, you like, if they hadn't taken their shirts off, I wouldn't know. They're fucking racist piece of shit. Like, how many other people have swastika tattoos around? Like, you don't know. Like, everyone, like, remember the end of Inglourious Bastards where fucking Brad Pitt carves the swastika in fucking, forget his name, Christoph Waltz's, was it Hans Landa? No. What was his name? He was the Jew hunter. In his character's head, and he, like, carved the swastika in to be like, yeah, you'll never be able to, like, get away from it, right? Like, every fucking Nazi needs a swastika carved in their fucking forehead, like Charles Manson. Because, like, afterwards I was thinking about it to myself, like, those guys didn't have their shirts off. I wouldn't, like, you don't want to judge someone, right? Like, you might meet them and be like, yeah, you come from a rural farming community, but you don't like in Idaho, you don't want to be like, oh, so I'm sure you have a swastika tattoo. Like, that's not what you want to think about anybody. And the thing that freaked me out was we were having such a nice conversation before I realized that they were fucking Nazis. Nazis, they probably never even met a Jewish person. They don't even know what being a Nazi is. They're just racist pieces of shit, right? Like, that's almost giving them too much credit saying a swastika tattoo means they're a Nazi. Like, I'm sure they didn't read Mein Kampf. Probably never read a fucking book, I'm assuming, if they have those tattoos. Like, how much could you have fucking read, you know? Imagine that. Imagine saying that's giving someone too much credit, calling them a Nazi. It's like, Jesus. But the thing that freaks me out is, like, they just seem like normal, nice people, nice guys. And that's fucking scary, man. Like, they just walk among us, right? There's got to be a way to identify them better. But then, to bring a little levity to the close of this podcast and the whole situation, I was explaining the situation to a friend, and then I thought to myself, I'm like, here I come, right? Here I come, fucking Mr. Cartoon character, wading through the river, like climbing up these rocks and finally coming upon them in their hot springs when they know there's a fucking super easy trail. They're like, I come out of nowhere, and they're like, where'd you just come from? They're like, you waded across the river to get here? And I'm like, yeah. And then I explain to them that I parked my motorcycle right next to their car at the end of the trail, and they can't understand where the fuck I came from. And I tell them I'm from Yellow Pine, super rural community, but I'm wearing Nike shorts, Nike shoes. I got my thank you for not being racist tank top on, and I got my fucking hat, and it's on forward with the dolphin, red, white, and blue hat with a rainbow of a unicorn humping a dolphin. And I can only imagine that they're looking at me being like, what the fuck is, who the fuck is this crazy guy? Because then I also forget sometimes that I'm 6'1" and I'm a really big dude. So, like, I certainly cut an imposing figure to someone who I'm bigger than, right? They're like, I'm a big dude. I'm not super muscular, not very muscular at all, really, but I'm big. And that's scary to people who are not as big. So, like, I come up upon these guys. They're fucking construction workers, which you just associate with being tough because laborers in general are very strong. They have that, like, farmer strength. And so I come up upon these, like, Nazi laborers, but they're also got to be, some part of them must have been like, who the fuck is this crazy fucker, right, that just comes stumbling out of the fucking river to find the hot spring. So I would like to think that as I was telling that story to you guys and was telling it to friends via text last week, I'd like to think that those guys were at the same time texting their friends and being like, you wouldn't believe what the fuck happened. We're just hanging out at this fucking hot spring, right? The dude comes fucking wading through the river, comes up, we got to thank you for not being racist shirt, a fucking rainbow, looks like a fucking maniac with his hair dyed 2 different colors, got a picture of himself as that man who had a motorcycle on his back. We were going to say something to him, but we don't want no fucking problem with him. So I'm hoping that I scared them half as much as they scared me. And with that, I'm going to leave it off. I just spilled Topo Chico on myself, which is nice because it's still like 80 fucking degrees out here. So yeah, that's the end of the podcast for the week, right? I guess. I should probably give a shout out to Speakeasy Meats. I don't have any here with me because it's not going to keep well in 90-degree weather. But Speakeasy Meats, great sponsor of this podcast and great fucking meat, man. If you want to put some smoked meat in your mouth, if you want to wrap your tongue around some smoked meat, you got to go to speakeasymeats.com. Adam Bauer's company. Use the discount code Jakey, get a ton of money off. Basically giving it to you for free at that point. I think it's free shipping this month and 50% off or something like that. Just put in the code. You'll see what it is. I think it's actually like a jackpot. It's like every time you put the code in, it's a different kind of discount. At least Adam Bauer, who owns Speakeasy Meats, keeps telling me what it is, and I forget to pimp it hard. And would you please order some Speakeasy Meats? I'm just begging you. You've heard me talk about it. You know how good it is. I don't need to keep telling you, right? I don't need to keep telling you how good the monstrami brisket is, how good the cluck wings are, right? How fucking delicious. You don't need any barbecue sauce with this. In fact, they specifically say don't use sauce on any of our shit. They cook it so fucking perfectly, and they send it to you. It just shows up via UPS in this like fucking frozen contraption box. I don't know how they keep it cold for so many days. Dry ice, whatever the fuck they use. It's like magic. You just pull it out. Shit's still frozen and vacuum sealed. You just cut that shit open. You let it defrost for a little bit. You wrap it in tinfoil, put it in the oven at 350 for 10 or 15 minutes. You take it out. It's gonna be some of the best meat you ever had. You're gonna fucking season your meat, right? You're such a good fucking meat smoker yourself. You're gonna like get one of those, whatever the fuck they're called, the egg smokers or whatever, or the Weber grill or whatever the fuck every guy likes to think he's so good at smoking meat. You're not as good as this guy, right? You're not a fucking professional. Everyone thinks they're a professional at everything nowadays. Like, I think I'm a professional podcaster, but I fool you guys. You're listening, right? But people think they're like, oh, listen to this song I wrote. I don't want to listen to it. If it was good, it'd be like other people would be listening to it. Right? Like, if you were so good at smoking meat, what I'm saying is if you were so good at smoking meat, people would be at your house for a barbecue every weekend. Are they? No. You pull the smoker out like 3 times a year. You kind of do all right. You're like, hey, we're fucking good at smoking meat. Stop. You're not. Just buy meat from speakeasymeats.com. Just let Adam Bauer, let him be the the Brad Pitt to the Angelina Jolie of your taste buds, right? Let him slap his smoked meat onto your tongue, and you're gonna say, I've never had anything as delicious as this. I'll tell anybody. The Monstrami brisket is better than fucking Katz's. And you know what? You don't have to wait in line. You don't have to go pay one of those. You don't have to pay $38 for a fucking pastrami sandwich at Katz's where they write down the shit and they just charge you whatever they feel like charging you because they write them on those weird tickets with this ancient script. No. You know exactly what you're going to pay, and then it's going to be half of that when you put in my discount code. And this shit's going to show up, and all you have to do is warm it up. You don't have to go to Katz's. You don't have to wait in line. You don't have to fucking be seated next to someone who's like recreating the famous When Harry Met Sally scene, any of that bullshit. You just, Speakeasy Meats comes right to your house. Just order that shit. SpeakeasyMeats.com. Use the discount code Jakey. I'm imploring you. I'm imploring you. Adam Barra's kids need to eat. He's got 2 daughters in college right now. You know how much college fucking costs? I'll tell you who doesn't know. Those 2 fucking Nazis I ran into at the hot tub. Do you want to be like them? I bet they've never ordered Speakeasy Meats. Do you want to differentiate yourself from Nazis? Order SpeakeasyMeats.com. That's the best way you can differentiate yourself from these fucksticks with the fucking swastika tattoos. If you don't want to be like them, please order from SpeakeasyMeats.com. Or, of course, make a donation to this podcast. You can Venmo me at Jake-Suffnerowski, or type my phone number in there, 917-443-7615. Send me a text message. Let me know what else you like about this podcast. I asked people to tell me last week. Someone said more wetland stories. Very soon, I'm going to tell a lot of wetland stories. I think I'm going to have a wetland-centric guest on my podcast, probably more than one while I'm back in New York. Wetlands was such a blur to me. And not that I don't remember anything. I just don't remember. Specific stories don't stand out to me. It's so long ago. But if there's specific stories you want to hear about certain events that you might have heard about happening in wetlands, like, hit me up. I'll go through those. But I think I'm going to go through the book of all the old flyers I have, and maybe one of these episodes I'll just do wetlands reminiscing, and by flipping through the old shows, I'll be like, oh, that night was fucking incredible for this reason or whatever. But if there's anything specific you want to hear about on this podcast, let me know. At Jake Roxoff on Instagram and Twitter. 50-50 chance I even check those. Or text me, 917-443-7615. Email jake@roxoff.com. If you have an offer for a cheap Rolex or penis enlargement pills, send them to that email so they get stuck in my spam folder. Your email very well may get stuck in my spam folder. If you're afraid of that, also you can email szuf@me.com. Be in touch. You can still send snail mail to P.O. Box 4116, McCall, Idaho, 83638. And right now, I'm going to let Johnny Pacalolo take it out with his Tuesdays with Jakey theme song. Not here on YouTube because I don't know how to edit video, but if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, here's his sweet sounds. God bless. Inshallah.